He spent a full £200 million to buy every bar of chocolate in the UK for his daughter. Then, he hired 1,000 of the best workers to unwrap them. Such reckless and costly behavior was all just to find a golden ticket made of real gold. These golden tickets were extremely rare, with only 5 issued in the entire world. They were created by the world's largest and most famous chocolate factory, and the owner of the factory was the legendary Willy Wonka. Everyone knew his name, but no one had ever seen what he really looked like, nor did anyone know how his unbelievably delicious and bizarre candies were made. In the 20 years since the factory was built, no one had ever entered, and there were no visible workers. Yet every day, endless streams of candies continued to be shipped out from the factory. Everyone desperately wanted to uncover the factory's secrets. Now, anyone lucky enough to find a golden ticket would not only get to tour the inside of the factory and witness Willy Wonka's hidden world, but one child would even win a grand prize beyond anyone's imagination. Wonka's chocolate was sold worldwide, and under the wrapping of any bar, in any shop, on any street, in any city, there could be a golden ticket hidden. On launch day, people young and old rushed to empty the stores of Wonka chocolate. Soon, the lucky winners began to emerge one by one. The first was Augustus from Germany. Because his father ran a butcher shop and never restricted him, Augustus was constantly eating all the time. He devoured 300 bars of chocolate a day, almost swallowing the golden ticket along with it. The second was Veruca, the little princess from England. She didn't do anything, nor had any special talents, except for having a very wealthy father. All she had to do was ask, and her father bought all the chocolate in the country and forced factory workers to open them non-stop for 3 days and nights. Winning a golden ticket was almost too easy. During a media interview, the family stood on a bearskin rug. The father took the chance to advertise his company. The mother flaunted her giant diamond ring, and the daughter put on a fake smile. After the interview, the spoiled little princess immediately started demanding more and more. The third was Violet from America, a tough and competitive girl. She had won 263 trophies across all kinds of sports, driven by her fierce competitiveness. Normally, she only chewed gum, but the moment she heard about the golden ticket, she immediately switched to eating chocolate. Soon after, the fourth golden ticket was found. But unlike the others, Mike found his in just one try. Gifted with a genius-level IQ from a young age, Mike casually glanced at the production dates, weather data, and stock indexes, and easily deduced where the golden ticket would be. However, his arrogant and smug attitude constantly gave his parents a headache.
And how did it taste?
I don't know. I hate chocolate.
Now, only one last golden ticket remained undiscovered. Watching the chocolate delivery trucks on the streets, Charlie could only look on with envy. He wasn't faster, stronger, or smarter than the other children. His family wasn't rich or well-connected, and they even struggled to have enough food to eat. They lived in a house so fragile that it seemed like a strong gust of wind could blow it down. The whole house had only one bed and one blanket, and he had to squeeze in with his grandpa, grandma, and both his other grandparents. His mother was always busy fixing the roof and doing chores, and their meals were nothing but boiled vegetable leaves and roots. The only income came from his father, who worked at a toothpaste factory. The only thing he could bring back for Charlie were a few stolen toothpaste caps, yet Charlie was still grateful. His greatest joy was building a miniature chocolate factory out of toothpaste caps, and listening to Grandpa Joe's stories about Willy Wonka. Grandpa Joe had once worked for Willy Wonka himself. Back before the factory was built, Willy Wonka only owned a small candy shop, yet it was so wildly popular that people from all over the world flocked to it. Wonka was a true candy genius, capable of making ice cream that wouldn't melt for hours even under the hot sun. Soon after, Willy Wonka decided to build a real chocolate factory. It would be the biggest ever, 50 times larger than any other factory. The day it opened, the streets were packed with crowds, and Grandpa and Grandma witnessed the event with their own eyes. Even an Indian prince, upon hearing the news, hired Wonka to build him a grand palace made entirely of chocolate. The bricks were chocolate. The concrete was chocolate. Even the walls, furniture, and floors were all made of chocolate. Wonka warned the prince to eat it quickly, but the prince refused, insisting on living inside the perfect chocolate masterpiece. Until one unbearably hot afternoon, the palace could no longer hold up and completely melted. The prince urgently sent a telegram demanding a rebuild. But by then, Willy Wonka had his own troubles. Other jealous candy makers had begun sending spies into his factory to steal his secret recipes. After a while, all kinds of cheap products started appearing. Ice cream that would never melt, chewing gum that would never lose its flavor, and candy balloons that would never burst. Heartbroken by this betrayal, Willy Wonka closed the factory one day without warning and sent all his workers home. He announced that the chocolate factory would be closed forever. Since then, the mysterious Willy Wonka had vanished from public sight. As for Charlie, he couldn't even imagine how long forever really was. Now, the chocolate factory resumed operation, and thick smoke once again rose from its chimneys. Who was running the machines? Where had Willy Wonka gone? It became a mystery. Grandpa Joe said he would give anything just to go inside the factory one more time. This made Grandpa George burst into laughter, reminding everyone in the shabby house, especially Charlie, that good things like this would never happen to people like them. The room instantly felt a few degrees colder. But before bedtime, Grandma secretly whispered to Charlie, "Nothing's impossible, Charlie." At that moment, Charlie had no idea that he was actually the luckiest boy in the whole world. And from that night onward, impossible things had already begun to happen. Charlie could only get 1 bar of chocolate each year as his birthday gift, but knowing how much Charlie must have hoped for a golden ticket, his parents, despite their poverty, decided to give him his birthday chocolate a week early. Charlie had never been so nervous. Under the hopeful gazes of the whole family, Charlie carefully unwrapped the chocolate. But no miracle happened, and under the wrapping was just a cold, ordinary bar of chocolate. The disappointment seemed to drain even the sweetness from the chocolate. Still, just like his father said, no matter what, Charlie still had chocolate. Charlie broke the chocolate into pieces, making sure that everyone could have a piece. He shared his sweetness with the entire family, then carefully took a small bite himself, savoring it slowly. But soon, even worse news came. Charlie found out that his father hadn't gone to work the next day. Because the chocolate sold too well, many children developed cavities, and toothpaste sales skyrocketed. The toothpaste factory introduced machines to boost efficiency, and Mr. Bucket lost his job on the spot, making their already dire situation even worse. Charlie saw everything with his own eyes, and that's why he was far more mature than any other child, because he had endured so much hardship and especially cherished every bit of sweetness. Grandpa Joe saw Charlie's sadness, so he pulled out his wallet and took out his last coin. It was Grandpa Joe's secret savings. Grandpa Joe told Charlie to run to the nearest shop, buy the first chocolate bar he saw, and come back to open it together. The golden ticket had to be inside. But the miracle still did not happen. Standing at the factory gates, Charlie silently prayed. But then he overheard people saying that the last golden ticket had already been found. Just like Grandpa George said, good things really never happen to people like them. But then, Charlie suddenly spotted a 10-pound note lying by the roadside. Looking around and confirming there was no owner, Charlie quickly ran into the nearest store. He was so hungry that all he wanted was a chocolate bar to fill his stomach. Unexpectedly, hidden under the wrapping was a golden ticket. It turned out the previous ticket had been a forgery. The adults nearby immediately crowded around, offering high prices to buy the ticket from Charlie.
That's enough of that. Leave the kid alone. Don't let anyone have it. Take it straight home. You understand?
Thank you.
Charlie had never felt so excited. He shouted and ran all the way home. The bedridden Grandpa Joe was so excited that he miraculously jumped out of bed, dancing with joy. It was like a medical miracle. But Charlie, who had always dreamed of entering the chocolate factory, hesitated because someone offered 500 pounds or even more to buy the golden ticket. Grandpa Joe's heart instantly sank. Indeed, faced with harsh reality, they didn't have the luxury to chase dreams. And while everyone fell silent, it was the usually harsh Grandpa George who spoke to Charlie.
There's plenty of money out. They print more every day. Only a dummy would give this up for something as common as money. Are you a dummy?
No, sir.
Then get that mud off your pants.
After so many years, crowds once again filled the area outside the chocolate factory. Each child could bring one parent along. And no matter who won the unimaginable grand prize at the end, everyone would still receive several truckloads of chocolate, more than enough for a lifetime. The giant doors slowly closed. Everyone only heard a man's voice on the loudspeaker and saw a comical opening performance, but still did not see the legendary Willy Wonka. Instead, there was only a man with oversized glasses clapping awkwardly, who couldn't even speak smoothly without reading from a card. Only Grandpa Joe recognized immediately that this had to be Wonka. But with his casually tossed clothes and pale, sickly face, he looked nothing like a powerful figure. And Wonka wasted no time mocking each child's flaws. The greedy Augustus, the arrogant Mike, and Charlie, who simply got lucky. As for the other two hypocritical kids, Wonka couldn't even be bothered to acknowledge them. The long hallway was dark and cold, as if it would never end, and Wonka's strange behavior made the parents suspect that something was wrong. But when Wonka finally pushed open the door to the workshop, everyone was too shocked to speak. It looked just like a fairy tale world. Every drop in the river was made of the finest molten chocolate, and a giant chocolate waterfall stirred and churned it. And everything the eye could see was made from chocolate, including the grass and the pathways underfoot. Beautiful to look at and delicious to eat. After introducing everything, Wonka told the children to let loose and enjoy as much as they wanted. They had no idea that everything here was actually a test. Mike, who didn't even like chocolate, immediately started wrecking things. Violet snatched fruit right out of Charlie's hand. Bullying the weak was her greatest pleasure. As Veruca looked up, she was surprised to see several Oompa-Loompas working on a nearby hillside. It turned out that they were the real workers of the chocolate factory. At the time, Wonka had ventured into a primeval forest to find better quality cocoa beans. During his exploration, he was targeted by a giant mosquito. Sensing the imminent danger and realizing he couldn't escape, Wonka swung his knife with all his might, slaying the giant insect on the spot. In doing so, he accidentally stumbled upon the hidden home of the Oompa-Loompas. Due to their small size and the lack of available food, the Oompa-Loompas survived by eating foul-tasting, disgusting caterpillars. Coincidentally, the Oompa-Loompas absolutely loved cocoa beans, even worshipping them as sacred. However, it was extremely rare for them to find even 2 or 3 cocoa beans in an entire year. Seizing the opportunity, Wonka offered them chocolate as payment, successfully recruiting the Oompa-Loompas to become the factory's most loyal workers. While everyone was still marveling at the Oompa-Loompas, Augustus on the other side could no longer resist his greed. Unsatisfied with what he could reach from the shore, he ignored all warnings and reached out to drink from the chocolate river. In the next second, his fat body slipped and fell heavily into the river. Wonka was deeply disappointed. If only Augustus could have exercised a little self-control, he wouldn't have ended up in such a pathetic state. Augustus's mother screamed that her son couldn't swim and begged Wonka to save him. Wonka said nothing, just glanced up at the machine overhead. A suction tube plunged into the river and sucked Augustus out. Because of his gluttony, Augustus became the first child eliminated. Suddenly, countless Oompa-Loompas emerged from the corners, singing and dancing, with their lyrics openly and subtly mocking Augustus. The real culprit was his parents' indulgence. What was strange was that the lyrics and the dance seemed to have been rehearsed long beforehand. It felt like Wonka had known everything that would happen from the start. Despite all the bizarre events that had taken place, everyone decided to continue touring the chocolate factory in hopes of winning the legendary grand prize. Only Charlie asked Wonka a question out of curiosity.
Do you even remember what it was like being a kid?
Oh boy, do I. Do I?
But actually, Wonka hadn't thought about his childhood in many years. When Wonka was a boy, he would dress up like a little elf for Halloween and go door to door asking for candy. The difference was, Wonka always wore a huge dental correction device. Wonka's father was the most famous dentist in town. In his father's eyes, candy wasn't candy, it was a source of cavities. From a dentist's point of view, he constantly told Wonka about all the bad things candy could cause and then dumped all the candy into the fire. Having perfect teeth was his father's demand and Wonka's childhood shackle. When Wonka snapped back to reality, the boat had already sailed into a turbulent, narrow channel. After passing through the raw materials workshop, they arrived at the most important place in the chocolate factory, the invention room. All kinds of strange and new candies were experimented on and created here. For example, there was the everlasting gobstopper, a candy designed for kids with little pocket money, which could be sucked on for an entire year without getting any smaller. There was also hair toffee, which could make new hair grow within half an hour after eating. But the biggest and most incredible invention was the 3-course dinner chewing gum, which contained roast beef, tomato soup, and blueberry pie. If you didn't want to cook, chewing one piece could fill you up. This made Violet very excited.
I'd rather you didn't. There's still 1 or 2 things that are...
I'm the world record holder in chewing gum. I'm not afraid of anything.
Ignoring Wonka's warning, Violet immediately stuffed the gum into her mouth. Very soon, she felt tomato soup pouring down her throat, followed by roast beef, and she marveled at such a candy. But the next second, when the taste of blueberry pie flooded her mouth, Violet's nose began to turn purple. It turned out the 3-course dinner gum was still an unfinished product, and previously, 20 Oompa-Loompas who tried it had turned into blueberries. Violet was no exception after ignoring the warning, but the first thing Violet's mother thought of was,
But I can't have a blueberry as a daughter. How is she supposed to compete?
You could put you in a county fair.
Soon, the Oompa-Loompas emerged from the darkness. Without a doubt, Violet's obsessive competitiveness was the result of her overbearing mother's influence. Even after her whole body turned into a giant blueberry, Violet refused to spit out the chewing gum just to protect her champion title. She would be sent to the juicing room to be squeezed dry in an attempt to return to normal. Then, the group continued their tour. Mike immediately wanted to know what the ultimate prize was. Veruca, on the other hand, was curious whether Violet could stay a blueberry forever. Only Charlie once again asked a soul-piercing question.
Can you remember the first candy you ever ate?
No.
But in fact, even now, Wonka still remembered the first piece of candy he had ever eaten. Amidst the blue flames and ashes, Wonka found a piece of chocolate that had been saved by its tin foil wrapper. Seizing the moment while his father was away, Wonka quickly stuffed the chocolate into his mouth, and the wonderful taste made him completely fall in love. After that, Wonka could not stop. He saved all his pocket money to buy different kinds of chocolate, and he personally recorded the taste of every piece of candy into a notebook. Over time, Wonka was no longer satisfied with just eating candy. He wanted to know how these delicious sweets were made. Soon, they arrived at the nut room. Mr. Salt was very familiar with this because he was involved in a related industry. But what no one expected was that the workers here were specially trained squirrels. They would tap each nut with their knuckles to determine if it was good or bad. With an accuracy rate of 100%, bad nuts would be thrown into the central garbage chute.
All I've got at home is 1 pony and 2 dogs and 4 cats and 6 bunny rabbits and 2 parakeets and 3 canaries and a green parrot and a turtle and a silly old hamster. I want a squirrel!
All right, Ken. Daddy will get you a squirrel just as soon as he possibly can.
Whether reasonable or not, as long as it could be solved with money, Mr. Salt would never refuse Veruca's requests. So Veruca always got whatever she wanted and naturally saw herself as the center of the world. But today, Veruca was met with refusal because Wonka would never sell out his own workers. Seeing that her father had no solution, Veruca still refused to back down, and she climbed over the fence, deciding to catch a squirrel by herself. The next second, all the squirrels pounced on her, and Veruca was instantly pinned to the ground, while Mr. Salt panicked. Wonka, however, leisurely pulled out a large ring of keys and slowly searched through them, clearly stalling for time. The squirrels did not harm Veruca, but tapped on her forehead repeatedly. It turned out that Veruca had been judged as a bad nut, because all she knew was demanding and making unreasonable trouble. It was no surprise she was deemed bad. After Veruca was thrown into the garbage chute, Wonka finally found the right key. Without thinking, Mr. Salt rushed forward to try and save his daughter, and ended up facing the same fate. As for why Veruca ended up like this, the answer was obvious. Only 2 children were left. To speed things up, Wonka took everyone to a special elevator. This elevator could move not just up and down, but also sideways, diagonally, and even twist and turn. Just press a button, and they would instantly arrive at their destination. Along the way, they passed the giant gummy mountain, the cotton candy meadow where cotton sheep were raised, the Oompa-Loompa Injury Hospital, the Oompa-Loompa Financial Center, and even the Oompa-Loompa Candy Firework Tower. The entire factory was so large that it seemed endless. In a daze, Wonka remembered his father again. At that time, he dreamed of making the most delicious chocolate, but his father showed no support. In anger, Wonka ran away from home for several days. When he finally returned, his father had truly moved away, and since that day, Wonka had never seen him again, and his childhood was forever frozen at that moment. Soon, Mike interrupted Wonka's memories. Mike always believed that everyone but himself was hopelessly stupid. So, even when he saw things beyond his understanding, he refused to believe the factory's wonders, and impulsively pressed a button that took them to the TV room. Unexpectedly, this was where Wonka's greatest invention was brewing, the television chocolate. With a special machine, chocolate could be transmitted through television to the other side. This way, when people saw an ad and wanted to buy chocolate, they could instantly taste the treat. It was true remote delivery, allowing children all over the world to eat chocolate. Upon hearing this, Mike immediately flew into a rage, cursing Wonka for being an idiot, because such a world-shaking invention was wasted on chocolate. Claiming he was no fool, Mike charged toward the control console. His arrogance and premature cynicism made him lose the childish wonder he should have had at his age, and he no longer fantasized, becoming overly realistic. But by the time he was actually transmitted to the other side of the television, it was already too late for regrets. Mike turned into a tiny little figure, bouncing between different TV channels. Even when his father pulled him out of the screen, Mike did not return to his normal size. Mike would have to be sent to the toffee stretching room to try and stretch him back to his original form. In the end, all the other children were eliminated one by one, and Charlie naturally won the ultimate grand prize. Wonka was extremely excited. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. He pressed the button labeled "Rocket Up," and sure enough, the next second, the elevator roared to life, shooting the 3 of them straight out of the chocolate factory's chimney and soaring into the sky. Below them were the eliminated children. Augustus was nibbling at the sweet taste on his fingertips, but was sternly stopped by his mother. Today, he would not get an extra meal when he went home. Violet had become more agile, but with that strange appearance, her mother no longer wanted her to participate in any competitions. Veruca spotted the flying elevator and immediately opened her mouth to demand it. But this time, Mr. Salt replied,
Veruca, the only thing you'll get in today is a bath, and that's fine.
But I want it!
As for Mike, maybe when he grew older, he would seek back the innocence he had lost. Charlie pointed to the small, shabby house in the farthest corner of the city. Wonka crashed straight through the roof without hesitation, making the already shabby house even worse. The so-called ultimate prize was the inheritance of the entire chocolate factory. It turned out that half a year ago, while getting a haircut, Wonka was shocked to find a strand of white hair, and in it, he saw the life's work he had built. His factory, his loyal Oompa-Loompas, all of which would have no one to care for once he died. So Wonka carefully prepared the golden tickets. Now Charlie was the chosen one. Charlie only needed to leave behind all his attachments and, like Wonka, dedicate his entire life to the study of chocolate. That was the price of chasing dreams.
So if I go with you to the factory, I won't ever see my family again.
Yeah, consider that a bonus.
Then I'm not going. I wouldn't give up my family for anything. Not for all the chocolate in the world.
But to Wonka's surprise, a poor boy like Charlie could still stand firmly by his family even in the face of such overwhelming temptation. Wonka could not understand. He had spent his whole life making candy, trying to bury the bitterness of childhood with sweetness, only to find it all shattered at this moment. Wonka, helpless, looked at the strange eyes around him and fled in embarrassment, leaving Charlie's family and a broken roof in silence.
Things are going to get much better.
And the usually dazed grandma, for once, turned out to be right. Later, whenever Charlie had time, he would help his mother repair the roof and sometimes shine shoes in the streets. Grandpa Joe no longer spent all day lying in bed. When doing housework, he seemed to have endless energy. Mr. Bucket learned how to help repair machines at the toothpaste factory. Their family's life got better, and meat gradually returned to their dining table. In contrast, Wonka's state grew worse and worse. He wandered listlessly, and even the new candies he developed lost their former magic. Finally, he couldn't help but go ask Charlie.
What makes you feel better when you feel terrible?
My family. What do you have against my family?
You know, they're always telling you what to do, what not to do, and it's not conducive to a creative atmosphere.
Usually they're just trying to protect you because they love you.
At least not by myself.
You want me to go with you?
Hey, what a good idea!
It turned out that Wonka was just too proud. He had long wanted to return home, and there had always been a home button on the elevator. After so many years, when Wonka finally returned, he found that his father had never moved away. The lonely building stood tall amidst the snow, just like Wonka's cold heart. He rang the doorbell, and his father was still as stern as he remembered. The father and son did not have a dramatic reunion. His father was still performing his duties as a dentist, but Charlie noticed that on the wall on the other side were countless clippings and news about Wonka and the chocolate factory. It turned out that Wonka's father had silently watched over him all these years.
I haven't seen bicuspids like these since Willy.
Hi, Dad.
Without many words, the father and son embraced tightly, feeling each other's long-lost heartbeat. Later on, Charlie and Wonka ran the chocolate factory together, inventing countless delicious and magical candies every day. After work, Wonka would visit Charlie's home. Perhaps the most important things had always been right beside us. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is far from just a sweet children's fantasy film. It is a diagnostic book written for the adult world, and a belated tender dream beside the pillow. When we place children onto the assembly line of success, are we creating another Willy Wonka wearing a dental brace? When education becomes a tool for class mobility, do we forget the golden spirit growing inside that shaky little house? The absurdity of the fairy tale questions reality. To cure the syndrome of lost childhood in our era, perhaps every father needs to be a poor man handing out chocolate, not a dentist fitting iron braces. Just like the piece of chocolate Charlie could never bear to finish, true education is teaching children to savor the aftertaste of life in scarcity and to guard their soul's integrity in the face of temptation. You always ask too many questions, questioning what truly has meaning, but some things just need to be sweet. They don't need to have meaning, like a candy melting in your mouth as you close your eyes, dreaming of princes and princesses living happily ever after. It's like I softly whisper in your ear, "Good night. May the long night be dreamless."
One thing was absolutely certain. Life had never been sweeter.